face the final frontier.
Train to the plastic underground. Approaching station. Please stand away from the platform edge. Alright, so let's start this build. So, let's start with the actual little speaker box. So, before on this channel, I made the desk comm with the switches and the little desk comm. So, it's the same thing, basically. It just doesn't have to stand up. So, you just have to make the face of it. So, I just used some 5mm foam for that wide part there. But the base is 2mm, so there's two pieces that make up the bottom, and they get glued up together. The one gets the screen cut out of it, so it's just a little bit smaller than the bottom piece. So there is the top piece, and that goes on the bottom rectangle there, and then that 5mm gets glued on top of there. It also gets that little bean shape cut out for the light. But the entire base of the wall comm is 5mm foam, so I'm just cutting out a big rectangle of 5mm foam for that. This is some craft foam that I buy from Hobby Lobby. The brand name is Silly Winks, and it works really good. So, yeah, so the next thing I want to work on is the... I don't even know what it's called. It's like the light. It's like the red alert light. And so I'm just kind of using paper here to kind of get the basic shape of this kind of square triangle shape. And so I end up using a little bit of plastic from this soda bottle. So I'm just cutting off top and bottom of the soda bottle, flattening it out, and then using my paper template to draw the shape on the plastic. This is a really, really cheap, easy way to do this. It's not perfect. It's not great. But it gets the job done, and it looks pretty good up on the wall, and you don't really notice it. It also, in my opinion, it kind of matches that like 50s sci-fi cheap look. But yeah, I think even back then they used like epoxy or acrylic and cast like a square. And then they ran like lights behind it that would light up. But I'm just using this cheap plastic, and now I'm just kind of bending over these folds to make this box. And then instead of trying to glue that together, I used a little bit of clear packing tape on the inside corners. And that's how I made that box. So this is some screen material. You can use like door screen material. The stuff I used came off the back of those drain covers that I end up using for the stairs. So I have a bunch of those left over. But yeah, I'm just gluing that to the base here of this comm. And then I glue the top part on. So what that screen does is it gives you that little texture to look like the screen. What they actually used is like mesh from a speaker, like an amp, like an old guitar amp, that kind of thing. They just used that mesh and turned it inside out, and that's why some of it has a little bit of like gold and gray texture to it, because that's just how it came from the manufacturing. And you can buy that stuff. It's pretty expensive, but you can buy a sheet of that stuff if you're really trying to go like super authentic. But in my opinion, this mesh screen material, it gets the job done, and it looks like a speaker screen. So for me, that is good enough. But yeah, so then I'm just kind of gluing this part on, and again, you could run a light in there. You could run lights through this whole thing and make these switches function, but for me, it's just a static wall display. So I cut out that section of the base and put the clear box in there just to make sure it fits. Plasti dip the foam, and then I'm spraying it with the same blue that I did the desk comm. I forget the name of this blue. It's like a baby sky bluish color. It's a pretty nice blue. So then for the actual wall, I did the same thing. I just plasti dipped it and then sprayed it red. All these parts here were 3D printed. I'll put a link to them on Thingaverse. It's like a full thing. You can print the entire panel and everything. But I just wanted these switches because these switches are not easy to come by. So just kind of painted them up there. And then I'm painting the base here red. That's right, I didn't plasti, yeah, I did. I plasti dipped it and then I primed it so that it was a light gray, so that this red paint on top would cover it better than on top of black plasti dip. But yeah, just give that a couple coats, let it dry, and there's everything painted and ready to go. I also kind of went through and marked this stuff before I painted so I could see where stuff needs to get glued on. You can kind of see the little dots and stuff there. The box, I also sprayed it white from the back. I thought that would make it look a little better than just being clear. Because in the show it's a little like cloudy. It's like frosted plastic. So that's what I did for that. So this little speaker box gets glued on here. Just using some hot glue for this stuff. So glue that in. Glue the red alert light box in. And then you can kind of glue that in from the back too. Just kind of run a bead around the seam just to hold it in from the back. Here is that silver bezel for that red switch. Just glue that in place. And just adding a little dab of super glue or hot glue to the middle. Sticking that switch in place there. And then this little black bezel gets glued on the bottom. I think I end up removing this after I paint the switch because the switch goes in from the bottom. But it's no big deal. With hot glue, you can kind of pop stuff off easy. A lot easier than super glue anyway. Yeah, so using the airbrush, I mixed up a custom yellowish white color, and I'm spraying that little switch. Just using some 3mm. Well, no, the brand is 3M. That double-sided tape. Sticking that to the top of a pill bottle, and this is how I paint a lot of miniatures and stuff. I stick it right to that tape, and it works really, really good. That's like my preferred method now. I have a ton of those. So then I go through and I paint this speaker mesh black. Just doing this by hand, making sure to get the corners pretty good. Then I paint the little light part here. This is white. This lights up in the show when you push the yellow switch in for the speaker. So you can totally do that with a little bit of plastic and an LED. And then the red button, the big red button, that is the red alert button. So if you push that button, the whole ship goes on red alert, and that white box at the top would flash red inside. So there is my yellow switch. Goes underneath that black bezel. And then this one I'm just using a little bit of super glue because I was upstairs painting and my hot glue gun is downstairs. But super glue works the same, just as good, and then this will never ever come off or get knocked off or anything. So yeah, next thing was I wanted some nice screws for the corners. I found 4 screws that I liked. I thought they looked pretty cool. And you can see I cut them to be a little shorter so they don't stick into the wall. I didn't want to mount this to the wall like with hardware, so just cut those a little shorter, and then just using this little copper tube to cut out the foam so they fit right in there, and I will end up hot gluing those in place when I get it on the wall. But it looks pretty cool. So here it is. This is where I'm going to be installing it. I have this little level here that I'm using. And yeah, just to make sure that it goes on the wall straight. It'll be the only straight thing on that wall, I'm sure. But yeah, get it leveled, mark the corners with a pencil. Then I'm just running super glue. No, not super glue. I keep saying super glue. I run hot glue along the inside of the panel and stick that in place. You can see this one part here, because it's the foam is super thin. That white box wants to push the foam up and have it be a little warped, but when I glued that to the wall, I just kind of pushed it into place and glued it in place. But yeah, and then I just use some super glue here. Hot glue, man, use some hot glue, or you can use super glue. It doesn't matter. But just putting a bead of hot glue in that hole, and then pushing the screws in the corner. So there you go, guys. That is how I made the wall comm from Star Trek, the original series. So hope you like it. It's pretty fun and easy build. So hope you make one for yourself, and see you next time when we make something cool.